the wide green one?
The wide green is the next, it's the counties 15 through 44.
Oh, it's all jumbled together.
I put a whole bunch together, so that represents another 22%. The next 50 counties are in the blue on the left side at 16%. And then the last wedge, the 11.53% at the very top, is counties 95 through 251. So a lot of counties don't provide very much vote, and then a few counties provide half the vote. So that was, I thought, notable. And I used Proposition 2 because it got a high percent and it was sort of a generic high percent. So I wanted to look for patterns, and I put Waldo in there.
I thought it was you.
So I put 12 counties from across the state into a sub-analysis, and I guess my point in this was to try to get a sense of whether urban votes were different from rural votes. So I picked 12 votes. The Titus County is a shout out to Sue.
Thank you.
Haskell County is a shout out to our former governor and secretary, Rick Perry. And then I picked some large counties. I picked 3 in the Houston area, and Tarrant was the second biggest vote total, so I thought that would be a good county to choose. Again, the point was an urban oversample, but also see if any patterns jumped out at me. In this analysis, there were 251 counties. There was one county that didn't report in the initial totals. I don't know what happened to their, I think it was Eastland County, but they did have a few thousand votes that were added to the mix. By my measure, I think 2 counties did not hold primaries. So there are 5,522 data points. This is going to be too small to see. Take a wild guess what this Valley County is, where they voted less than all the other counties on almost. Very good.
Hang on a second. Can we turn off the lights just at the front? Is that what those? Whoa.
Ooh.
Well, maybe the whole room. That helps a little bit. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
So statewide is this left column, and I guess, again, this is probably very hard to see, but you can, notably, most of the propositions got very high numbers in almost every county. The 3 that are a little lower, this one that's up and down and up and down, is the education options. And what jumped out at me was maybe there's a trend with rural counties supporting school choice a little bit less than urban counties, and we'll get to that in a second. Property tax replacement was a little bit up and down in this black line, and then the dark red is the abortion abolition, which did pass Travis County, by the way, by a bare 50%. So pro-life, you know, that tells us something about our pro-life strength across the state.
So the black line, property tax, was Prop 1?
That was Prop 1, the property tax replacement, whereas the, let me see which one. Prop 10 or 11, the property tax revenue, the 4% is the dark blue at the very top of this line.
People in the back want to know what the big dip is.
The big dip is Travis County. So they have lower percentages on a fair number of these. Let me just go left to right real quick. So this is Harris, Tarrant, Travis, Hidalgo. Next one is El Paso County. So that's a shout out to Mark there. Montgomery, Fort Bend, Lubbock, Victoria, and then Kerr, and Titus, and Haskell.
Just to help me out, what color is
Hidalgo
Hidalgo?
is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th column, so it's all of the ones right here. It's the data point that bumps up from Travis. And they were surprising to me. Just a quick point on Hidalgo. I thought that the percents were quite high for a large county. They seem to be larger even than like Tarrant County. Okay, so then I ran a standard deviation, which is to say I wanted to see how spread out the data was. Were there big differences between counties, or were the counties clustered really closely? So of the 12 that I looked at first, abortion abolition had the highest standard deviation here in the red bar, and then with decreasing you can see that something like property tax revenue increase, very low spread among counties. It was almost all the counties voted the same way. So abortion abolition with a high standard deviation means that came mostly from the Travis County contribution. But Also the privacy, safety,
Exactly.
education options, and then you can read the rest that are kind of in the middle. The yellow line is percent yes, so again, you can see that they're almost all above 70 with the 2 exceptions noted before, and I guess the ones with lower standard deviation tended to have higher support, but not always. Okay, this is the nitty gritty. I don't know that I want to get too much into this, and you can't really see the color shadings, but once I got the data for all the counties, I thought I would run the same analysis with all the counties and see if I could. Essentially, the theory here is my first 12 were an urban oversample. If I do all 251 and average them and treat them equally, that really oversamples rural. So what that's going to tell me is if there's a distinction between the two. So in terms of standard deviations, things that jump out at me is the standard deviation for rural counties seemed to be higher for property tax replacement. So there was more up and down, a difference of support on that. On privacy and safety, actually the opposite is true, that the rural counties seem to cluster more closely together, whereas the urban counties that were in the smaller sample had a lot more deviation. Those are the only two that really jumped out at me. Education option difference was smaller than I thought. And then I actually looked at the percents. Shockingly to me, there was only one proposition where the 2 samples differed by more than 1%, and that was the property tax replacement. So you can see the explanations down here. I think I'll save that for, if there are questions later on that, you can approach me. Data points, out of all of those counties and all of those propositions, there were only 3 results in the entire state that were not majorities. And those are covered in this list. I won't talk through the entire list. Starr County, shout out to my mom's home county. They had 10 primary ballot voters, and they didn't vote. They voted 4 to 6 on property tax replacement.
Wait, they had how many voters total?
10.
Wow.
Brooks County, right to their immediate north, only had 4 votes. They were the only ones who didn't have an 80% on or above on the toll road funding. I think their vote was 3 to 1. Texas House Speaker, they were all over 75% except for Travis and Loving. Loving County, as you know, is the smallest county in the United States. They had 15 primary voters. E-Verify was only had 2 counties below 80%. Education options, there was only 1 below 50%, and you can see the other numbers there.
Virgil,
Yep.
did you see any, did you look at or see any kind of difference in border counties on the
No.
Verify?
They didn't. In fact, I think Hidalgo was higher than the mean. Cameron, I don't remember.
It all goes to be a bit of an anomaly. They have had huge growth in one way.
And what struck me is maybe if you're if you vote in a Republican primary in South Texas, you are a Republican. There's no doubt about that.
Cameron, we hardly have any down ballots. Hidalgo has a lot more, so there's more incentive for people to vote in the Republican primary in Hidalgo. In the case of Cameron, I have people who are going to vote in the Democratic primary who are hardcore conservatives. It's just because they want to put on those races.
Right. On abortion abolition, there was only 1 county below 50%, and that was Loving County again. That's 7 to 8, and you can see the other numbers there. I'll move on to the next
They have a
slide.
low
Are they all
population.
related? I'm just curious.
What's that?
Everybody in Loving County related?
I do know that they take turns being county commissioner because by Texas Constitution they have to have 4 county commissioners. So, so I thought I would do scatter plots of 3 of the more interesting propositions. So Prop 5 was the education options, and what I did here was I plotted. Thank you Excel. I didn't plot. Excel plotted all 251 county results from. So this is Harris, obviously, Tarrant. The third dot there would be Dallas, Bear, Collin, Denton, Montgomery. Travis is probably the one that's below the line. And I wanted to see if there was any pattern. If you know anything about statistics, I don't know very much, but R-squared sort of tells you how strong a correlation is. And the R-squared number on this was only 0.01, so very low. What the number also told me was for every 100,000 primary voters, they were 6% more supportive of school choice. So again, it's a weak pattern, but I think it's a pattern. So urban counties supported school choice at a higher level. For Proposition 6, that was the privacy and safety of public spaces. There's actually the opposite trend where the urban counties seem to drop a little bit. The R-squared number was a little more significant. It was 0.20, so that's about 13 times greater than the previous one. And it dropped about 10% for every 100,000 votes. So every 100,000 primary voters made them vote 10% less. And then that's Travis County right there, that one way below the line. Interestingly though, Harris and Tarrant are above the line, so they were more supportive than the population might have predicted.
Who's way below the line?
Which one?
You have two.
The very small one there I think is Loving, and because it's at the very end there, and then that's Travis at the 40,000.
Virgil, you said this weights all counties
Equally.
Right. Okay.
Right, so that line is not, it's not weighting these counties more, it's weighting these counties relatively more.
Right.
Relative to population, that is. And then I also did the abortion abolition one. There was a slight urban-rural, but I think, again, Tarrant and Harris are above the line there, so maybe the line shouldn't drop as fast as it does if I had weighted them based on population rather than on treating counties equally. The R-squared number on that is in the middle. Of the two others, it was 0.06. And then finally, just wanted to give credit to everybody here.
Oh,
Hope I didn't forget anyone.
good job, Bruce.
Any questions? I'm at 14 minutes here, so if there's one or two questions, I'll take that. Yes?
Did you plot the range of votes per ballot initiative?
Yes, I did, and it actually was less interesting, so I decided not to include it. There were so few that were below, 70%. Almost all of them were noted on the, I guess, on the 2 pages where I noted all the statistical trivia stuff.
Well, specifically, like on the abolish abortion one, what would be the high end on that one?
I guess I can go back to that. I mean, there are a couple counties here, small rural counties that are above 90%, a handful at 80, a whole bunch in the 70s, and a whole bunch in the 60s. So almost all of them cluster in the 60s through 80s. If you turn your head sideways, you can actually sort of see the bell curve. That's your bell curve right there.
If you lay down on the floor.
That's your distribution there. Any other questions? Yes, Gail?
I would just note that when I was knocking on doors, and I talked about this, the two that people are, anytime I talked about the propositions, the two they didn't, I think, what didn't like or didn't understand was Prop 1 and the privacy one. They didn't understand necessarily all the entities, and they really didn't understand Prop 1. That was not a concept that had been presented to them, and I don't think they had enough time. So that would be the reason that it was low.
All right. As I've exceeded my time,
We really appreciate you so much. And just to recap, what I thought was so interesting, and you said it very quickly, was that the rural counties feel less strongly about school choice than the urban counties, correct? Did I get that correct?
Correct.
So, and it may be because they just don't have as many choices where they live.
That was
There's a lot of reasons.
what I was thinking.
Well, and education is the primary employer in the smaller areas, so they're more invested in it, they don't probably.
I mean, there's probably a lot of
They feel
reasons.
like they have good education.
I just thought that was a very interesting result.
They're farming chickens and not paying attention.
Well, they may be paying attention, it may be that their schools are just doing an excellent job, and they're very invested personally in those schools and think highly of it. And that's been my experience in the smaller school districts. So,
Huge school district.
but it
They
helps,
all think their schools
you know
are
what,
better.
it might be that we need to message differently to rural areas than to urban areas when it comes to that issue, and that was Debbie's point that she made to me, which is actually true. So, it's,
Teachers are 100%
they are voting for, and we love them and appreciate them, so it's important that we message correctly to agenda. I ran these myself, and I'm a fiscal conservative, so I did them front and back. You will find on there all the resolutions that we've passed during our time on the SREC. And I'm doing this so actually it's time to hook up my computer. But you know what? We had a change of secretary of the party, and we also had a change of website of the party. It's a little hard to find out what we passed as a full SRC. It was hard to find out what we did in our committee, but not everything ended up the same when it came to the full SRC. So I had to go back through my blog, my personal blog, and find all of our ones that we passed as a full SRC. So I went ahead and listed those. One of our is it okay if I say this, Mark? That you're going to be. Okay. Mark Ramsey is going to be chairman, temporary chairman of the platform committee and state convention. We're very excited about that. And what has happened in the past is that this body has forwarded the resolutions that they have passed during its tenure. And so I just wanted everyone to take just a couple of minutes and look through these. Some of them may or may not be timely to send to the convention. And I did note on there that we did have a memorial one for Mary Easterly when we lost her. And of course, that one would not be forwarded to the convention. But if y'all could just take a couple of minutes and see if there's any on that list. Again, it's on the back side of your agenda. And see if there's any that we, you don't have an agenda? Are there any extra agendas around? Oh.
Display?
No, those are. They were passed around. I thought I had more than enough copies. Can somebody let, who is it that's missing one? Here, you can, I just need it back. Y'all can just take a second to look at it while Ashley says. Oh, here they are. Oh, we found them.
What do we need?
We needed the extra agendas.
We got them.
Try just to
Did you have one?
Yes. Okay, so just revert.
It's in there.
Yeah.
So, if you've had a chance to look through those, are there any that you feel are no longer timely to pass on to the permanent to the convention platform committee?
So I need to replug this in.
Yeah, try that.
Kind of fun to see 2 years worth of work here, isn't it? Kind of all distilled down to one page.
Yeah. That was the impressive part, actually. We get it all.
So we're going to lay that aside for a few minutes because we're going to deal with some other resolutions today. But at the end of our meeting, before we adjourn, we're going to decide what we send to the platform committee. So,
Question.
Yes, sir.
Since there's another committee on legislative priorities and new city, would we pass some of them on to that committee?
we certainly, it's not in our bylaws to do that, but
It
our
would seem logical
but
that some
again-
would go to platform and some would go to
I
legislative.
don't think our bylaws deal with them in particular, so I think that probably would be appropriate to just go ahead and pass them
I don't
on.
think it prohibits us from doing it, and if we're gonna do it.
It would be more appropriate to go that direction.
Yeah.
Who's carrying legislative priorities?
I understand, Amy Clark. All right, then, we're gonna,
On the last one, resolution concerning the sister goes our track, is that one?
applicable, I don't
Yes.
believe it is.
No.
I think that one
So I would say
expires.
that would be one that we.
Would strike? Okay.
Also, as the first extension that's ever been passed, as a result of the 2016 platform rules change, that maybe it is.
With the projector?
I'm sorry.
Well, what do y'all think?
I think
Searching.
that would be appropriate.
Out of range.
Probably haven't heard about it yet.
Well, it would just be for we passed for full resolutions. So, yeah, they're pretty long documents.
But it'd be more than this, either way.
Yes, if we can find them.
These are like,
Here's the problem, y'all. I'll just be real with you. I'm sure they're out there somewhere in the cyber world, but right now they're changing our secretary. We have all the ones since Jim has come on because those are stored digitally, but the ones from Rena are not necessarily, and they've updated our website. So, it's not an easy, it wasn't an easy pull for me. That's why I had to use my blog to find all the things that we had.
I don't have everything.
So I couldn't find them, so I'll pull, Rachel says we can pull them, so we're gonna direct staff to pull those. Thank you.
Good job. Good job.
Rachel, you can work for yourself, we love you. I don't think she meant to do that. But she says that if they are available on the bottom of the website, I just couldn't find it. So that doesn't mean they're not there, and Mark was right, we figured they're still out there in cyber world somewhere if we just knew where to look, so that's good to know. So
We'll ask the rest of us.
we will find those. They will be found. All right, so we did have two resolutions that were submitted in a timely manner, and so we're gonna take those up first. Does anyone want to speak in favor of either one of those? The two that we have are actually front and back on another sheet. Front and back, supporting the electoral college and resolution to right to keep and bear arms. Anyone on the committee want to recommend adoption of either one of those? Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I think as close as we are to the convention, that unless it is extremely urgent, I would prefer to postpone these and
Okay. We have a recommendation to postpone. Was that a recommendation or a motion?
I motion it.
I motion it.
Gail moved. Gail Stannard moved to postpone, but that we,
Try and turn it off.
we forward this to the platform committee.
Why it's turned off?
Well, I'm sure they already are. I have,
Well, I know one.
for sure one of them. Yes, ma'am. We have a motion to postpone these in order to let the convention deal with them. Would you like to speak to that motion?
I wanted to speak on the motion, I don't know.
You need a second first
Oh.
to speak.
We
Well,
have
it's a
second.
committee, actually don't, but we could. Does somebody want to second that?
We'll have it turned off, but it's not turned off.
All right, then, it doesn't look real good for that one, Dale.
Give it a couple seconds.
Sorry,
It's gonna
yes, ma'am.
power down, and then I'll take the power back up.
Attorney
Oh,
Walter
I didn't know.
submitted it, and he's here, could we let him speak as to why we should hear it now?
Well, we actually have that one and the other one. We do have, the sponsors for both of those here. So,
Computer's too
but
fancy.
usually if the committee is.
So we should use RP computer.
You hear about that one
I would
first?
recommend we hear about this.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. Jerry, I assume
Can
it's
you
okay with
turn it back up after?
Sure.
I don't have technology.
Am I speaking to the whole thing or just postponing?
No.
No, we didn't,
No.
we are not
Not
postponing
postponing
it.
it?
We're gonna talk about
Great.
it.
So, yeah, I'm glad we're not postponing this because this is not directly at the convention. The convention platform already says these things, it's gonna keep saying these things. This is about the timeliness of
Did you
it.
already adjust it on here?
We've got some things going on in government right now that are really disturbing to our grassroots voters and delegates. We have all heard from them. We've seen some stuff, these things that happen, some conventions, directed at our congressional delegation because some things went down on us, including gun control measures. This is not about naming names, this one is about letting people know the RTC still knows the answer to this question. We haven't changed our mind, and we want fewer gun-free zones, and we want constitutional carry, and that's the best way to keep our kids and our families safe. We haven't changed our mind, and Republican voters in Texas should know that we're still on their side on this one, and we want their support. We're supporting them on this issue.
All right. Any other discussions? Motions.
I'm gonna harp on this. We have just been through a primary, we have just been through precinct resolutions that are going straight to the platform committee on these things for us. We can say we're adding our voice to it, but we are a grassroots oriented party. And we are at the top of the heap. And I don't want to be a part of the top of the heap, talking down. I want to be a part of the grassroots speaking up. And so I'm going to vote against. And just not because I don't agree with it, but because I still think it should.
I will say that this is covered fairly thoroughly in Plan 149 in our platform. If anyone wants to look at that, so.
I would just say that, this resolution, if we publish it, certainly, speaks for the grassroots. I mean, they did put something like this in their previous platform. And, because of, the current events and all that, it becomes incumbent upon us at this time in this SREC meeting, I believe, to go ahead and pass this resolution and publish it. And we're supporting the grassroots. It's not like we're taking their voice away in this case.
I would tend to agree with Jeremy that the timeliness is important. We're responding to events on the outside. The party is taking a stand. It will be published. Not everybody's going to go to the party website and see it, but it will be there. The SREC reaffirms, the SREC stands for these principles, and then when the platform comes around at the convention, that will be a time to further strengthen various planks. But this is, for now, this is for making current issue statements.
I saw a couple other changes, but.
I kind of wanted to reiterate what my colleagues said, that there is a sensitivity here because we have delegates that have been elected to a state convention, and they, will be convening in 2 months. On the other hand, if we decide it's timely, I think it would make sense to speak to the issue. So that's what I'm weighing. I'm weighing, are we stepping on delegates' toes because of the timing of this, or because of the events of the world and legislation that's being proposed? Is there a need for us to speak on something that the grassroots has weighed in on before, that I think there's a consistency? I don't think the grassroots has changed their mind about the Second Amendment and our need to vigorously protect rights. So for me, that's the decision is, do I weigh in on the side of letting the delegates have first bite at this, or do I think about the implications of the fact that there's restrictions being proposed?
Both Marks have their hands up.
Go ahead.
All right, well, the one thing I would say is there's nothing in this resolution that actually didn't pass overwhelmingly through our county convention. So I would argue that it's already gonna be there. I would be shocked if the majority of the counties weren't in support of the Second Amendment. And
Travis County might be the anomaly.
well, with the exception of the dips. I feel pretty confident that there's nothing in here that I would go against. I mean, in fact, some of this stuff is almost verbatim of similar thing that we passed at county convention. So to me, I don't think it's a big deal if we pass it here today, because it's going to be covered at the convention anyway. That's my view.
Mark.
Yes, well, first, I tend to agree with everybody in here that I don't think there's any county or SD conventions, either one, that would be offended on us taking additional stands for the Second Amendment. And to the idea that, well, the convention's gonna be around in just a couple of months or so, until that point, we still, as SREC, represent the grassroots, and there is a current urgent danger to gun rights going on in Washington. And I think it behooves us to underscore that Texas is opposed to, the Texas Republican Party is opposed to any further restrictions on gun rights. And I don't care what the crisis of the day is that the media is trumping up to try to make that happen, but, I think we've got to defend the Second Amendment every chance or every time it gets attacked. My only concern here is that this may be too defensive in nature, the way it's worded. I don't have wording right now, maybe Virgil.
I wish it were up on the screen so we could wordsmith. Is there any chance we're
Apparently
gonna?
our laptops are too fancy for this projector.
Oh. We're too fancy.
But we might consider some language.
Can I try Virgil, so it says what color?
edits.
We have Virgil's edits.
I have everything on
They
the
may be
laptop.
exactly what Mark has in mind, you never know.
Well, probably not, but my only, comment really substantive on this, I mean, I'll vote for it as is, but I know in our SD, we passed a resolution basically saying the superior way to protect our children, that's the current, discussion going on, is to have willing teachers and coaches and staff be allowed to carry in schools. And maybe something that's a little more.
That's a little bit more specific than this
Right,
wording, yeah.
right. And it might be a little more relevant to the current national.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
But I'm okay with it as it is too, just emphasizing that, no, just because that happened over in that state, it's unfortunate, but we still want to protect our gun rights.
While Virgil's getting that set up, I saw Brady next.
While we appreciate not having to reinvent the wheel, because I don't think that's the purpose of the way it was set up, but it is a political statement. In fact, we've made decisions here recently, particularly the last meeting, that dictate a political statement.
It looks terrible.
And I agree in that, what is being said, that is it time for a political statement? And therefore, we're gonna do this, then let's make that political statement that addresses the specifics of what is going on today. And of course, the convention, the state convention will understand our purpose.
Very good. Okay, so if it's okay with y'all to look at wording, specific wording.
Can I turn those lights up?
Turn the lights
Yes,
down.
please. Thank
So
you.
you and I are gonna play with these.
Go
lights.
ahead.
So, I'll let you do it.
With, in mind that we have,
Thank you.
okay.
And Jeremy, I just threw some things in there. If I don't think I changed anything substantive, but you guys can't tell the whereases are in red, so I just did that for uniformity. I was gonna ask someone to do the usual.
He
The
cleans it
cleanup
up, so he's
roll.
still doing his cleanup while he's amazing.
Someday when we do a cleanup rule, we should clean them up in a way that accords with Robert's rules. Or resolution.
Okay, we were just trying to be.
Not the other direction.
We were actually trying to be consistent. All right, so there has been some suggestions that we change wording a little bit to represent maybe
Specific action.
specific actions. That would be, I think where you're heading, if I'm not mistaken, is more of our body's a press release statement than maybe a plan, because the plan is very clear. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you guys, or am I missing that? No? Mark wants it to be more
Yeah, that was what
specific,
I was
like,
thinking.
yeah, that's not what you were thinking, okay. So-
And actually, the party did have a press release, if I recall, right after.
I think so.
Not really,
Not really?
not really.
Okay,
That's why there's a resolution.
okay. So, I mean, that's really our job as a resolutions body. Are there any specific changes other than Virgil's cleanup changes?
Well, let me make the ones that are non-formatting. I'll just do quick amendments here.
Okay.
And I guess the first one, I thought it was a little unclear in the second whereas, as to what was, let's see, what did I want to do here? Whereas our nation is currently experiencing renewed efforts to infringe on this right, I want to put comma efforts here just to make clear that it's the efforts that would undermine and not the rights. So I would move that. So to add the words, to add the word efforts there.
So you're having efforts twice in that?
Right, just for clarifying what it is that's being
Okay.
infringed on.
Anybody have a problem with that?
I would only say that I would think the double dash with a comma between right and effort should be. That's just my.
I like the comma.
That's not.
It can go either way.
What's your next one?
I want to put a comma right here.
Where?
If successful,
What paragraph are you
Third.
on the third,
Whereas if successful, okay.
I think that's a cleanup, but I'll do it for the benefit of committee here. So just adding a comma right here.
Successful comma.
No.
Third paragraph, okay.
And then I wonder what maybe the fix could be here. I think it's obvious that we're talking about the Texans. Maybe it would be better to say law-abiding Texans, where I have the brackets there. The whom are we causing harm?
So would threaten the safety and security of law-abiding Texans?
Including children and those most vulnerable to attacks by those who wish to do them. Is that all Texans?
What if we just took them out, do harm?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a.
Excellent.
Does that do what you want it to do?
Yes.
Is that,
eliminate all?
Them.
Which to do them.
Wish to do harm.
When teachers, fall in on that statement, because you have children, but teachers are also at harm.
No, just said including children.
Right. But my point is that there's discussion on the street concerning whether teachers should carry. Are they law-abiding? Hope so.
do we want to wade into that with this?
I don't think
Well,
so.
we already, in that beginning of that sentence, we said threaten the safety and security of all Texans. I would think that kind of takes care of everybody. But then we went on to include
And
children,
those
those
most
most vulnerable to attack.
How about if we ended, this phrase after attacks and excluded, just talk by those who wish to do them harm? Including children and those most vulnerable to attacks. What is that?
I would second that.
That's an all prepositional phrases.
So killing all of this wording.
So where do you,
So we just put a
Say that
period after
again.
tax, just put a period after tax, because all the rest of that's prepositional or modifying phrase, it doesn't.
So Gail,
is that what she, is that what Gail said?
Jeremy, are you okay?
That's right. It's not going to be a resolution.
So you can just take the resolution statement, so this is the statement of the.
I would second that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion on that particular edit?
Oh, no.
Okay. What do you have next?
I don't have anything else in the last whereas. I don't have anything in the first resolved. I don't have anything in the second resolved. I just want to put a pair of commas in the, what is it, the third resolved, just right here and right here.
Okay.
Madam Chair, one question.
You know, you can take a breath.
Would it be appropriate, since really what we're looking for is the SREC to make a statement in support of the Second Amendment, that we abbreviate a paragraph or so of saying this is what we support. We support the Second Amendment, the right to constitutional carry, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not giving the verbiage here, but, you know, just that maybe one paragraph statement that, hey, this is what we support. Because I hate to tell you, if you think the press is going to sit there and print all that out, you're
So you're wanting to give them a press.
Just give it, because that way the state is making the statement. It gets at where it's at. I'm just making a recommendation, you know. Because, like I said earlier, just from my county convention, I'm sure pretty much 98.9% of everybody else, with the exception of the dips, that, that you're gonna have the support continued on. Our platform already says it. We'd be making a statement to the end state that this is what we continue to support. Texas hasn't changed any, and then go forth, at the convention 2 months from now, which will show even further support yet again to support the Second Amendment. That's a recommendation. I don't know.
Are you wanting to put a sentence in there?
All I'm saying is we probably ought to reduce it down to a substitute, making a statement to be, forward from, voted upon.
I suggest we let Jeremy have a comment related to that. Suggest we might want to hear what he has to say.
I think you can get what you want. I like the suggestion. I acknowledge the point that President will pick up the resolution. The last resolve where it says that RBT shall publish this resolution, if you replace the word publish with craft a press release in support of, then you're leaving our very talented staff to write the press release and distribute it in a way that promotes the resolution. Is that accomplished the goal?
Anybody that's an interesting suggestion. I'm seeing some nods.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Jeremy, can you help Virgil?
Could you say
Replace the
promote?
word publish with craft a press release in support of.
How about release?
Well, that's the same.
Well, we wanna make sure they don't get right.
Well, then it would read, craft a press release in support of this resolution and make reasonable efforts to promote its distribution to the press of Texas Republican voters.
There you go.
It's all there, I think.
I kind of like that.
I don't usually do this, but I'd like to ask if we should maybe add somewhere a line that says that we are speaking, we're the voice for the grassroots in Texas. Only because it's applicable to the congressional members right now, and I know that they're getting a lot of pressure to do something from a lot of places, and I'm not sure that they realize how many people don't support that.
So would you insert on behalf, we, the State Party of Texas, on behalf of our grassroots voters?
Yes, that would be fine.
Something to that effect?
Or continuing to, as we continue to speak for the grassroots or reiterate the grassroots, affirm.
Again,
You see what
Would
I'm
it be appropriate to make it a whereas statement?
I don't know.
Whereas
I
this
didn't
part of the law,
you could help the staff write the press release.
I don't know.
Virgil.
I'm wondering if I could ask Susan a question. Susan, would it work to put right here, I guess you don't see, right where we were editing a second ago, to say that the Republican Party of Texas, in defense of our grassroots or something there,
Or
that,
on behalf of?
on behalf of our grassroots.
Yes, that's all we need. I just want that in there, because this is not so much directed, in my opinion, I could be wrong, correct me, Jeremy, if I'm wrong. I believe this is not directed at the platform committee so much as members of Congress.
Correct.
Yes.
And the Senate.
Okay.
Is that true? I mean, national media.
And the media?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is about a press release.
it really is.
Mhm.
Okay.
You have double RPT names.
Yeah, I like saying it up.
I do too. So what we.
On behalf of the grassroots voters of Texas, on behalf of give me wording.
Just grassroots.
You're the wordsmith.
Would
Keep it
it
simple.
have to be Republican grassroots?
No.
No.
I wouldn't even go there.
On behalf
There's
of
no
all
good
the
word. It's grassroots, a bad word then.
On behalf of the,
Citizens.
So you're gonna find a lot of Democrats are even supportive of that.
That's true.
yeah.
Right,
Of course, if we speak on behalf of all Texans, there's gonna be a lot that scream that we don't speak for them, but we do speak for the Republicans, so.
But we could pick up some people.
We
who
could, we
switched.
certainly could.
think this makes sense.
So what word are we putting there? On behalf of the grassroots? Is that what we're leaving at that?
I think that's more than sufficient. You're saying the Republican Party of Texas,
Yeah.
On behalf of.
you know, in the grassroots,
That's
sort of,
pretty much-
Grassroots.
you know,
It would be better to just say Texas voters.
Could do that, could do that.
That way maybe try to.
Texas citizens.
That might be good.
On behalf of the citizens
I
of
think we should
Texas.
say grassroots. But I'm open.
Either way, I think this helps. Okay, so now the final will be resolved that the Republican Party of Texas staff, on behalf of the,
We're missing.
well, that's, be resolved.
Do we need to move something?
Maybe staff needs to go right before
What do I
draft.
miss?
Can't see the edge on the projector.
Oh,
If you just move over a little bit.
Okay.
We need the word staff?
No, because we need somebody to draft. We need to.
You want to kill the word staff?
Republican Party of Texas.
With the on behalf of the grassroots. Oh,
There you
okay,
go.
finally resolved that the Republican Party of Texas, on behalf of the grassroots, craft a press release in support of this resolution and make, okay. So, does that say what we needed to say? Mark?
Yes.
Anybody?
Okay,
Mark?
then we get further amendment.
Yes, we're now gonna move on to a further amendment.
Okay, if you go to the third resolve,
Wait a minute, I have something on that last one.
Hang on.
The very last one that, and promote its distribution to the press. And do we really want to say Texas Republican voters?
Jeremy, do we want to say, and to Texas Republican voters?
Is that really the audience?
So, I don't know how you say in formal resolution language that we want it to be press release and we want it to go on social media, but that's how I said it.
Oh,
I'm not gonna write, and then
To
they
the
post on
press
Facebook.
and generally across the state.
All Texas citizens?
to the press and the public.
okay, there we go.
Great.
So public.
Great.
Present public.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, he's fixing that one. Mark, point us to where you wanted to make your change.
Yes, it's the third resolve, fourth line,
Wow.
in between or right after citizens, comma, including willing teachers, coaches, and staff, comma. So it would read that we want to work to restore the ability of citizens, including willing teachers, coaches, and staff, to exercise their rights to own and carry arms.
Is that a reach for us to say? I'm fine with it, but is that a reach for us to say that we're speaking on behalf when we haven't actually passed a resolution on that specific thing? It's a question of not.
well, that's, I think I understand what she's trying to say. Because there are some folks, because that was one of the debates during ours, was do we want to sit there and try to push the teachers to sit there and do it, or to increase the amount of security staff who, that's their sole function in life, is to sit there and provide the security and so forth at the school. That was the conversation, at least in my particular county. I don't think that we were necessarily specifically unique in that, because that's, even at the national level, that's a big subject of conversation. So that might be trying to be a little too specific on, but I'm sure that's gonna be, I know that's, we've got a resolution that's going to that very question.
Well,
That's gonna be covered as we mentioned.
yeah, we do too, of course, and it was a similar kind of conversation. And again, back to the immediacy of the situation in Congress right now, I think part of our role is leadership as well. And if the national media dialogue is you know, put up metal detectors and secure the buildings and put security guards in and all those kinds of things. I think it's a good thing for us to jump in and say, well, let's arm the teachers and coaches and willing teachers, willing coaches, willing staff. Yeah, you gotta have that willing part in there. You don't want to give the impression you're gonna force teachers to carry. You don't want to.
And I think that was his
Hang on, Joe
point.
Virgil had his hand up first.
A question for Mark, should we add the word school before staff for clarity?
Yeah, that's probably true, yeah.
What did you say?
That's what I meant.
Add the word school before staff for clarity?
Yeah. Okay, Fred.
To Mark's point, and Mark, you have confirmed, is that we're not attempting to legislate those that don't want to do it. But certainly the word choice is important in that statement.
And does staff include janitorial staff?
Sure. Yeah. They've got as much constitutional rights as anybody else.
I just wanted to make sure that there's not a definition.
Yeah.
Preclusion.
Because you're restricted.
This is again a general statement that'll get subjected to legislation and platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could add, and this is SD7 argument specific that we heard, the compelling point that kind of swayed our delegation, and it was kind of going back and forth, was that when you have one of these situations, it is the school staff that is the first on location. And you know, those 3 teachers that took bullets, you know, they probably would have appreciated the ability to shoot back.
I guess my concern on adding this statement is it takes the focus off Second Amendment and puts it onto specific people and situations. I'm not sure if that's where Jeremy was going with the overarching.
Yeah, specific solutions is where I'd absolutely say leave it to the platform of the next convention. Like, focus on fewer gun-free zones, eliminate gun-free zones, and constitutional carry, because those are 2 bedrocks of the right to keep and bear arms. That you can carry your weapon to the defense of yourself and others where you go. Keep and bear arms. Anything else to me is weeds, frankly, on this one, and that's where I would go ahead and fall back on the leave it to the platform committee. We're almost there. Timeliness arguments. The important thing for timeliness is the basics, I believe, on most.
Pure statement, press release.
Yep.
Since this may be the first thing that I don't think that there's consensus on, maybe can we take a vote on this particular ad, the including willing teachers, coaches, and school
Yes.
staff,
I
and
think
then,
that would be appropriate.
and then maybe
if y'all are
proceed
ready
to
make
a
that decision.
final adoption if we're ready.
Okay, let's look at that specific sentence, which is including willing teachers, coaches, and school staff. If you want that wording included, would you say aye?
Aye.
And those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, it's close, or was it close? Maybe not.
Just rate change.
I think it's.
Yeah, if you feel,
I just want to say one more thing.
okay.
The second line says that we're encouraging them to seek solutions, and then what we do is we're giving them.
Is that good or bad?
Well,
Don't,
I mean, are you for or against? That's what I couldn't tell from what you said.
don't, my point would be, try not to sit there and dictate to the legislators who are gonna sit there and try to work out amongst themselves what they can get passed, and try to dictate to them what they're gonna pass. That's all.
I think this is a substantive difference on our resolution.
As you like, that's my.
That's right.
Susan?
My, yeah, well, my concern is that without that language, we are on 100% bedrock foundation, speaking for the state, for the current platform, and what we're reasonably certain is gonna happen in the next platform. When we start adding specifics, I'm concerned, just given the discussion we've had right here, and knowing the discussions that we've each had in our own counties and SDs, I'm not 100% sure that I can say with confidence what's gonna come out of the platform committee and be voted on as a plank regarding this specific thing. And so if we jump out there and say, this is what we urge members of Congress with this specific language in it, I'm afraid we're gonna be taking slings and arrows from our own side. And I mean, I get that, I'm for the idea, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% for the idea, but I'm really concerned that if we pull that in, we're gonna dilute the impact of the statement, of the purity of the statement, that's all.
Yes, Mark?
Yeah, just real quick, I think if we don't put something in there, it will get completely lost in the shuffle, except for people reading, RPT press releases and a handful of people reading SREC newsletters. And with that, I would actually raise a point of order that we're not supposed to be discussing things during the vote.
Oh, I apologize.
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
I thought we were done.
It was kind of an informal vote anyway, a straw vote, because it wasn't clear to me how things were going on
Fair
there.
enough.
And I guess, can I say one more thing as a chairman? When I have to stand in front of the room tomorrow forever and ever, amen, I don't want this to be a point where we're tripped up, if we can possibly avoid that. So, if we can hash it out here, that's better, and come to, if it's the will of us to make sure that that's part of it, then that we're on a firm foundation tomorrow for the full SREC, and not have to have Jeremy at the microphone wanting us to. I know, that's what I'm concerned about. Seems good at it. All right, so
I do like Mark's point, though. If we want to get attention,
get some attention on that. That's right.
Well, offer a solution.
Okay.
I mean, we're not sending out a legislative card, and it's press release.
Right. Okay, so if you are if you are in favor of leaving this wording in, including the in the whatever resolve that is, third resolve, including willing teachers, coaches, and school staff, would you raise your hand? Okay, those opposed? So it passes, it stays in, 7-5. All right, are y'all ready to, is there any more wordsmithing on this one? We need to move on because we've got other things to handle, but if there's any other, all right? Are y'all ready for the vote on this? All those in favor of recommending this resolution tomorrow to the full SREC, would you say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one passes. We will be bringing that tomorrow. We have another one that was presented.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the adoption and support of the Electoral College.
Okay.
I appreciate Melinda Fredericks actually submitting this. Fair representation is I'm intimately acquainted with in Evenwell versus Abbott. And this is really a very significant thing happening in our nation, and I do not want to see a new Mason-Dixon line drawn, and which is possible. So I move the adoption of this.
All right, thank you. So that one, for those that are in my fiscally conservative world, it's on the back side of that other one. So we have a motion, a second. Discussion on this one. And Tony and Shield, would you like to speak to this one?
Well, thank you, Sue. And when I first, when I actually submitted it to my precinct convention and then the county convention, I never saw it in the platform. And then Candy was so good to find it. One of them was like 68,
It is
which is great, but it only has that we support. And you're right, we're in a crisis situation right now. This is truly a crisis situation. Now, I could say let's defer it, and I will be speaking in more detail about it tomorrow in my presentation if I have that opportunity. I mean, it is scary because it does not have to be a constitutional amendment.
That's right.
Because that's what I don't think people realize, Sue, and you're exactly right, because if the states can do what they want, you know, they have the right to determine how the electoral, the college is done in their state. And so it is, and because of that, if they get up to 270 electoral votes, then it goes to a popular vote. And there is a movement going on, and I think what is really crucial and what I hope to see that the resolutions committee will add maybe, because I get that we want to keep it short, but if we don't educate and if we don't track we're going to be in trouble. The RNC passed this resolution in 2011, and today there are 165 electoral votes right now that have, in the states, 10 states that equal 165, that have passed this
That's
law,
right.
and there are 9 others. And you'll see these states tomorrow when I give my presentation. So, you know, we're there, but I'd like to see it expanded, the language a little bit more in what educating and in also in tracking.
It absolutely destroys our democracy or representative government, absolutely.
So I think Candy had done some research on this before, and you're absolutely right. But in the 2016, our founding fathers figured this out way back when because of the bigger cities. But if you think about this as a statistic that is pretty amazing, in 2016, if you just take New York City and Los Angeles County, and you extract those numbers out, President Trump wins by 564,000 votes. What does that say? They would dictate who our president would be. And I don't think we want that to happen. So thank you for allowing me to, and I thank Melinda because she actually sponsored this and through my request. So thank you for giving me the time to speak. Thank you.
What time was that?
It's 68.
68. All right, discussion? Virgil?
I'd like to move a different verb right here than brought forth. I don't know what that verb is, but I kind of want a stronger verb there.
Yeah.
Can someone help me out?
Which one?
Do we even need that? Could we not just say, represents the considered genius of our founding fathers in the United States Constitution? Do we even need that verb?
Good point.
How about in the form of the U.S. Constitution and take out as brought forth? As set forth? With crafting,
Set forth. Set forth might be better. I kind of like that, but I could go with killing the phrase if y'all prefer that.
If you just kill, I kind of like the chairman's, just scratch out as brought forth founding fathers in the United States Constitution. Just leave it like that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm always like it when it's more shorter.
Anything else?
Second whereas, I would move that we move this phrase as established by the Electoral College, to move that to protections as established by the Electoral College from tyranny of the majority. I think that makes...
So you're just rearranging?
I'm just rearranging. There's no objection to that.
Any objection to that rearrangement of wording?
And then in the fifth one, I think I had a modifier issue on this. Because it makes it sound like the constitutional republic is the threat.
Oh.
And allows, could we change that to and allows? And would allow?
How about since it allows?
I would be fine with that if there's...
Since is actually.
I actually have a problem with that entire verbiage there, because really the threat is a huge voter fraud in an urban district that could change the entire outcome. And so it's not the votes in a heavily populated community. It's the opportunity for election fraud that could change the outcome of any entire popular vote. And
Well,
so,
true, but it also means that the states can do whatever they want, and that's not proper either in our constitutional republic.
I agree.
The states can't just do that.
You mean like
So it's beyond,
So far, we have a third whereas.
it allows the states to determine the popular vote. That's crazy.
Aren't we in the fifth whereas?
Fifth.
Fifth one?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes.
Are there mean, I'm not, I don't know how it does the voter fraud.
Just think, if you have voter fraud in rural, Idaho, it's gonna pop out pretty quickly. You have voter fraud in LA or New York, it's,
Okay.
Well,
Harris County.
Well, give you an example, Philadelphia had 120% of their population, of the supposed voting population voted. You know, how is that possible? Of the
So-
registered voter, 120%.
So, that's where the real danger.
What's gonna happen with or without? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it's a definition.
I really don't think we
No,
should
it's just
put that element into this.
allowing the popular vote of a few as two heavily populated communities to determine a presidential election.
I would say that maybe a better way to say that is, whereas the so-called national popular vote legislative compact is a threat to our constitutional republic because it allows the popular vote. And is that what it's really trying to say? And it's, now, you may not like that, because I'm afraid constitutional republic, we still haven't made sure what allowing, because it's EVIC allows the popular vote. Does that make sense?
I kind of like the sense wording.
You like what?
I like the sense wording,
Okay, but I think you need to put NPVIC
since the NPVIC,
allows, not it, we don't know what the NPV is.
okay, and I also had one, I just wanted a comma here, if that's okay, in the second to last whereas, causes of a very small geographical area, comma, effectively ignoring most of the states. Is that okay?
Yes.
And then here in the last resolved, or in the resolved clause, should we say which legislature we're talking about?
Well,
It would be national.
it would be the all.
US.
We should call it all legislators.
The state legislature and the U.S. Congress?
Okay.
Which one is more affected by this?
Yeah.
The state legislatures.
Which
are doing it.
legislature are we targeting this to, state or national?
Oh, no, it has to be state, because the state has control.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, we can let the, national, but it is the state.
So we should,
So we are to the Texas legislature
legislature,
to defend.
Yes, please.
Okay.
and that's all I had.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Brett?
On the third whereas, and, my suggestion is that it says to ensure the fair distribution of power. As we understand the electoral college, it's a distribution of representation.
Oh,
Isn't that correct?
yeah, that's actually a better word. So instead of power, say of representation. Is that all right with everyone?
Yeah, that's good.
That's fine.
Mark?
Yes, I find your comments, Mr. Chairman, on the voter fraud
Uh-huh.
issue very persuasive. And I would like to see us add a whereas,
Okay,
okay, to address that.
okay.
Okay, this is real quick, but what I've come up with is
Where, Mark? Where?
It would go right after the second from the bottom, where it starts off, whereas the elimination of electoral college.
Okay, go.
And if you copy and paste that in the one right below it, it's patterned on that. And the way I've got it worded is, whereas the elimination of the electoral college could amplify the effects of vote fraud by a very small geographic area.
Oh, I like that.
Semicolon and.
Say again,
That's
please.
better.
Whereas the elimination of the electoral college could amplify the effects
That's
of
good.
vote fraud by a very small geographic area. Yeah.
Okay. Y'all see that change?
That's good.
Any discussion on that one? Any other?
The last whereas needs a grammatical change. It says, whereas under the electoral college provides, I think you eliminate under. whereas the Electoral College
Good.
provides.
Oh, yeah. Anything else? We didn't do our usual virtual amendment.
Can we do this and then I'll bring it up?
Yeah. Any other changes on this? Any other discussion pro or against the full body of this resolution? Y'all ready for the vote? All those in favor of passing this resolution on to the full SREC, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this will be presented tomorrow as well. You're welcome. We had another one that was emailed out. Already got on the front about that.
Right.
And there was actually two others that were given to me separately, that were not presented. Didn't have a chance to be given to y'all ahead of time, didn't have a chance to be, we actually post these on our Facebook feed, on our party Facebook feed for input. But so, you guys, when and for the future resolutions, people, whoever they are, please be respectful of that deadline so that we have time to make sure our facts and ducks are in a row. Yes, sir.
I'll move the following.
Okay. Go ahead, Virgil.
What's on the screen? Committee chair will be authorized to make non-substantive formatting adjustments and grammatical corrections not limited to punctuation, spelling, spacing, and fonts within her discretion to the committee report. Oh, I pulled this from the minutes.
This is one that we've done lots of times. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. All right. Now, that all said, we did have one that was emailed out to y'all, not to anyone else, but and it was by Fred. And since we do have time, is with the approval of the body, we can deal with that one and or the two that were handed to me separately via Dale. But y'all, did you pass yours around at all? No. Yes, sir.
Question, Fred. Being that I'm unfamiliar with Mr. Kerr,
Your
residence. Anyway, I'm not familiar. He's just been charged, I understand. The court case is not.
No, he's been convicted.
He's been convicted.
He's already been convicted.
11 convictions.
He's appealing.
He does not have to step down until his appellate process has finished in its
But
entirety.
he's been convicted.
But he's already been
The Democrats have also encouraged him to step down in office.
I mean, nobody wants to have their picture made with this guy. Nobody's.
Well, I'm just getting clarification for my own knowledge because I'm unfamiliar with this.
Arrogance personified.
That's right. It's almost like you've been convicted. And in fact, on there, I think I added, what exactly he was convicted of. It was breaking some federal laws, including wire fraud, securities fraud, associated conspiracy counts, money laundering counts,
That's right.
failure to register as a security broker to the FCC. So he was found guilty on all 11 counts. And the issue here is you represent the public in your particular area, and it's like it's a very, very worn out conversation about thinking that, or at least he's trying to express that he's right in what he's doing, or if he has the right to appeal, yes, go ahead, take care of that, take care of your business, take care of those things, but you need to step down. And so I think as a voice of the Republican Party, will it do something? I just think that we need to say, step down, fella.
So are you moving that the adoption of your?
Yes, please. That's correct.
Virgil's already done his magic on, and so what we have in front of us is a little different than what Virgil's going to show up on the screen.
This is the version that Fred is.
That he emailed out? Okay.
No. This is the new version that Fred and I worked on.
Yeah, but we don't have that in front of us.
Oh, right. So they need
Yeah,
they need to use the screen.
And we have about 15 minutes left in our time. We also have two that were handed out from from Dale, and, he's the sponsor for those two. Huh? No. Dale Gibble is the SREC sponsor. This is, somebody from his, SD. And, can you give us a 30-second, reason? Now, we kind of heard Fred's reason on his. Can you give us about a 30-second reason on your two?
Yeah, okay, so this fellow, David Ellender, is a new voter inside our precinct, and he is an attorney, and he sees these issues. These issues are a big problem in his court. The issue of driver's licenses, when a individual is not a legal citizen, and he's driving a car, and you have the problem with he can sue a legal citizen, but they can't sue him. It's really, he feels like it's a terrible situation. And the same thing on this. The other issue is if a person is found guilty of a crime and the conviction presented, the evidence is in favor of the illegal. So he feels like we need to level the playing ground, and so and give the attorneys the opportunity to do the right thing. Right now, their hands are tied.
Okay, so I talked to Chairman Dickey about these three in particular, and we can do several things as a body since we didn't have them by the deadline. We can deal with them. We can allow them to be presented under new business, not as part of our resolutions report tomorrow. Or we can pass them, of course, or we can just let them maybe go to, straight, let Mr. Ellender go straight to, convention and present them as, especially those two, as part of what he would like to see as platform plans. So at this point, I will entertain a motion on any of those three or not. We could, yes.
You want to move your resolution?
I thought you were asking for a sense of the body.
We can do any of those things.
Or a
We can
motion.
do anything we want.
If Fred wants to put a motion out.
I just wanted to give you all options, and so in your head, you'll know the options on these.
So the statement first is that, I agree that we did not make the deadline, and we're setting a precedence here, so.
Maybe not, we're ending our term.
We'll see here. Given that, give you the opportunity to openly either accept or reject. But I make a motion that we move this resolution to ask Carlos Dureza to step down from office.
So we have a motion to adopt this one. Okay. I will tell you that I have not had time personally to go through and check facts, and there is nothing that will make the Democratic Party yell about us faster than if we have our facts incorrect about one of their people. And so should we choose to adopt this today and or tomorrow, I would like to have a disclaimer that all facts need to be checked, double checked and rechecked before we make this public. So if that's
lines us up from a legal standpoint.
yeah, so that they have no ammunition against us. They can't nitpick anything that we say in a resolution as somehow not exactly completely. Because I don't know about y'all, but I haven't had time. Yes, sir.
How can we do that in a way that we can make it official that before it's publicized, or should we ask? Is there someone we could ask to make sure that
you can stay up all night and do the fact checking?
It doesn't seem to me like there's that many. There's not a lot of facts that we have to check, and I know you probably.
Some of it's been in the news quite readily.
Yes. So we followed the court case from the very beginning, analyze all the details of what happened, who said what, and so forth, including the very last statement made by his own, prosecutor. Those statements are directly from the prosecutor concerning what he was actually convicted on.
Okay, so Fred is, I know you're, pass that around back there.
Fred made this might be just a friendly
Since we don't-
recommendation. Why don't we just knock it down, because the basic meat and potatoes is this gentleman has been convicted, you know, in a court of law found guilty of such charges that, you know, he has the opportunity to do his appeal, but we think that he should resign. And just limit your statement to that, because that way, you're not going to have anybody sitting there, you know, questioning your whereases and what fors, you know, so on and so forth. All you're doing is making a complete statement of, he's been found convicted, you know, of breaking the law on this, this, and this.
So it looks like what you have up there, Virgil, is different.
Right, this is this is as of this morning.
Okay, can you tell us what's different between what you have and what's in front of us?
The third paragraph.
Looks like it's.
I think I cut one of, Fred and I divided one of the longer whereases. There were other things that we did, a word here and there, so I hesitate to sort of characterize the changes. To Mark Dunham's point, I think a thought, maybe if we do reduce it, I might suggest keeping the first whereas and keeping the last whereas and keeping the two results. And cutting everything else.
Why don't you read the first whereas and the last one that you're keeping?
So let's see if this makes sense. And Mark, help me out if you would, please. Whereas Carlos Uresti was elected to represent his constituents and faithfully execute, defend, and protect the laws of our state and country, and last whereas, a jury of his peers convicted him of all 11 counts in violation of our federal laws, including wire fraud, securities fraud, associated conspiracies counts, money laundering counts, and failure to register as a securities broker with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Republican Party of Texas finds the transgressions of Senator Uresti to be outside the confines of integrity, respect, and acceptable ethical, legal, and moral expectations of a state senator, and be it further resolved that the Republican Party of Texas demands that Carlos Uresti step down immediately from his position in the Texas Senate.
And I think if you, that's it, because you're cutting out all the stuff, the specifics that
might trip us up.
Exactly, from a legal standpoint, because they could sit there and come back and say, oh, you made a misstatement saying mischaracterized mine, and, you know, scenario.
Jeremy's not.
Are you okay with that, Fred?
Yes, absolutely.
You are, okay.
I like that, but I was gonna also add cutting out whereases, but then add, like you added to the gun one at the end, resolve that Republican Party of Texas staff develop a release in support of this resolution.
Calling for the resignation.
You don't have to go into all the details, but because then they can add whatever. I'm sure they'd love to write that release. They can add whatever they want to add. They can cross check it with RBT Legal, make sure we don't get any trouble, and then we're on the same time frame.
That's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, we have a.
You wouldn't want to include the bit about the Republican voting.
No.
No.
We already know.
So we have a motion to add in press release language.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it.
Mark moved it, I'll second it.
All those in favor of adding that language, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Is there any reason to say whether it's a felony?
I
Well,
don't think it matters.
you know.
It's just so. I think he has further charges that are actually pending against him as well.
It's covered by what Virgil has in the last whereas.
It's a different case altogether, so, yeah.
Just something to throw out, not sure if we need to do more than just talk about it, but maybe add Democrat senator in front of his name.
I have no problem with that.
You know, I kind of like that idea.
Because you know what? When I read it the
Nothing
first
more
time,
united a Republican like jumping on the back of a Democrat.
I actually like that idea because it's for those of us that aren't familiar with him and don't live near 19, is it 19? Senator 19?
Well, you do notice when the media goes after a Republican, they make sure to let you know that it's a Republican. But if it's a Democrat, they just fail to mention it.
Want me to put it as the first word in the first whereas also?
Democrat senator,
I
yes.
put it in the title as
Democrat senator.
Well, Democrat makes him even more mad.
Yeah. Not Democratic, Democrat.
One more. You said that that the Democrat Party has also
Yes.
ask him to step down?
Yes.
Would it
We
be
join
reasonable
with the
to-
Democratic.
How's the Democratic
Has
Party?
the party actually done it, or just some individuals within the party?
Well,
That's
see, you
that's-
might wanna
We
be
may be
careful with that
presuming there.
until, yeah,
The Democrat Party surely will
Right,
take a
the
position
local,
that
the local Democrat
the
chair,
individuals
chair,
could.
yes.
There's been some
And then there's several others, like, Gutierrez, Roland Gutierrez, who is also, you know, in the post office. And they got together from the local, and they actually went to the media, and the media actually declared, you know, they're suggesting that he step down.
So we say we join with Democrat leaders in
That would
calling
be, that
for,
would be better,
I mean,
rather than
Saying
saying
official.
official.
don't, yeah, don't say the Democrat.
Unless they've done it.
I don't know that for sure.
Maybe here in what's now the second resolve, be it further resolved that the Republican Party of Texas joins Texans of all
Stripes.
political, or all partisan affiliations.
Right, there you go.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, now that's just water the sand.
Well,
It's not.
We don't-
And there's no point here. Water.
Did you find a release?
Can you suggest
We do have a release that is coming to me. Oh, yeah, the state Senate's Democratic caucus is who asked him to step down.
that just happened.
Okay, well, that,
Oh, that's
What's the
I think
Yeah.
it's better to put that type of
Yeah.
language
That's
in
right.
as opposed to
Yeah.
maybe watering it down.
That is
One.
very powerful.
Give me the official
We
name.
can take that.
Joins
Take
the,
Democrat, don't say the
I think we need to put that in.
No,
You're
we
right.
join with
Yourself
it.
in legal
Yeah,
issues.
we join with the Democrat. That's great.
Maybe we could title it a bipartisan resolution.
Yeah, we had that.
It's the only one we're gonna do this year.
Yeah, we actually took that part out just so they couldn't say.
We're gonna censor our own, we might as well censor theirs too.
We should start with theirs.
Well, it was, and by the way, it was felony charges.
Yes,
That's,
If it is felony, it seems to me that adds gravity.
guilty on
To people,
11.
they recognize, they don't know where all those are. But we didn't put that in there anyway.
So you want to add the word felony on that first whereas that's showing up there, was convicted on all 11 felony counts.
Yes.
I guess I'll let Texas in front of us.
Yeah. Well, they all named
Oh, and that's, yeah.
Yes.
That's what it said in that news article.
They were
That's
like,
true.
They went past it.
On the internet.
That's something to take up with.
On that top whereas that you have showing right now, the top one that you had showing a second ago.
Keep
About
going.
the conviction, keep going down.
The last whereas.
Right there, the 11
Felony counts.
felony counts, add the word felony. Are y'all?
Yep.
Okay. It does add
I
gravity.
guarantee you this doesn't happen very often.
This is a fun one.
this is a good.
It's making me happy.
And not something we can give the platform to.
No.
It's a public.
All right,
Is-
so,
wait a minute, is-
speaking
is
of
that
that, we
correct?
just have a couple of minutes left, and we do need to sort
that
of back
correct,
around
or
on
was it verified?
platform recommendations,
You
so,
verified it.
if it's all right with y'all.
Oh, state senate.
We
Call the
will,
question.
we will,
Just
yes,
a,
I have a call for the question,
On this one.
on this one.
We're trying to
Uh-oh.
verify.
we're getting the wording right on Texas State Senate Democratic Caucus.
Yes,
Is that the correct language? Maybe?
that is what it said in the
Down or
article.
somewhere back there?
Who had that?
Texas-
Okay. We will check and double check that before it goes tomorrow,
Right.
before we send that. That will, if that, with the committee's, approval, we will check and make sure we have that correct. All right?
Yep.
All in favor?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, back to our very first thing we talked about, which is what we're gonna send to the platform committee. It has been recommended, and what they have done in the past is that we send a list of all of the resolutions that have been passed in our term to that platform committee. And I think it would be appropriate to send it to the Legislative Affairs Committee as well. I will entertain a motion. Mark?
So moved, need some language here. Let me go ahead and tell you what I've got.
Okay.
Resolved that a list of resolutions passed by the SREC 2016 to 2018 term be sent to the Temporary Platform and Resolutions Committee and the Legislative Priority Committee where possible. Of course, Rachel's miracle word. Where possible, RPT staff should attach the as passed resolutions.
Excellent.
Well, that's it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to send our work that we've done, our hard work we've done the last 2 years onto those committees.
And the language would include the ones we passed
Today,
tomorrow.
absolutely. Anything that was passed in our term by the full SREC. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair, these 2 resolutions that were submitted are excellently written.
They are excellently written.
I don't know if it'd be worth putting them in front of the body tomorrow or not, but I would be in favor of doing that.
Okay, so get with Dale and talk to him about their bids.
As new business, I think they're wonderfully written.
I would move the driver's license resolution number 1. Just that one.
So we're out of time.
Well,
Um,
can we,
Yes,
can we move to sit there and push these to the resolutions committee to be handled there at the convention?
well,
Are
you mean tomorrow?
No, to add them to the list we're forwarding to the resolution
We
platform.
can't forward anything that wasn't passed on the full SREC.
Okay.
We aren't sending them everything we did, we're sending them everything the full body did.
Okay.
So, but if these pass tomorrow under new business, we can certainly add, we will add.
Okay.
Recommendation.
I'm just trying to.
I'm
Do
sorry.
we have to make a motion to that effect if we're passing them to the full body?
No, they're just up to the,
Recommend.
But they're great. They are great.
all right. Seeing no further business, I declare the resolutions committee finished for this term.
Great job.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Very good job.
Sir?
Yeah, kitty picture, y'all gather up. How about up there? We'll turn the light. Yeah, that'd be great. Let's just do it. Y'all, resolutions, if you want to do a picture.